What's going on, guys? It is MadManPlant, and we are back here in the podcast studio. And today, we're actually not on my platform, even though we're utilizing my platform. We're with Elevated Healing and Best Buds 420 on their brand new podcast, Who Is, and I just happen to be the first person on it. Before we bring them on, though, I do want to mention that we have now reached 23,000 people on Facebook as far as followers go, and we are moving up the chain on Instagram as well, even though shadow banning seems to happen more on Instagram. We have created a growers circle, which is a group that's private on Facebook where we have 633 members, and it's actually a fairly active group. And in there we have behind the scenes and a lot more. We also have subscriptions set up on Facebook, and we have the full merch store that is now available. And I'm actually wearing one of the new shirts, which is the MadManPlant Grow Series t-shirt. And there's a whole bunch of designs. And we are going to start a new membership. And when you sign up, you get to choose what t-shirt you want with your membership. And that's all coming here in the near future. But without further ado, let's welcome Elevated Healing Farms and Best Buddies 420. What's going on, my guys?
What is going on, brother? We appreciate you having us. Super stoked to be here with you and appreciate the FaceTime with you. This is exciting.
Yeah, well, you know what? It's your first
Absolutely.
podcast here on my platform. So this is exciting for me. This is the first time I've actually hosted somebody else's platform on mine. So I'm pretty excited about this.
That's the collective motto.
You
It's
know,
good for the
thank you very
community
much
for
for
us.
doing it too, man.
Oh, not a problem, guys. So how does your show work? How does everything go down?
Well, so D is literally in a state right now. He can't necessarily participate openly with what we do. So with his mission and his vision of trying to figure out how to navigate the community, he came up with a great idea, and I'm going to let him explain it to you and how I came into it and why I'm the blessed one for this. So D, please take it away and let them know how this came about and what it's about and what we are about.
I was actually going to let you tell it because you're such a great spokesperson for it, and you sell that every single time. You know what my
Uh,
vision is.
Dude, I love you and I appreciate
This
it
is
for you. I'm
reason
glad
that
to. So, Dylan's vision is communities for everyone. Community means that if it helps me, it helps you. If
mm-hmm.
it's good for us, it's good for everyone. Honesty, integrity, loyalty, and passion is what drive the collective. If we say we're about something, it's because we know that it's good for everybody. We wouldn't do something to inherently put somebody in any risk because we're all trying to do the same thing. This is healing. This is calming. This is just all the things that make it so that the everyday normal life doesn't interfere any longer. You're grounded. You're connected to nature on a different level. So once he broke that down to me and asked me why I started doing this, instantaneously I formed a connection with this man, and I'm blessed that he's my brother because his values correlate completely with mine. Kindness costs absolutely nothing. Share a smile with somebody because it's going to impact their day. You don't know what they're going through. So from there, the collective became fruition. His mission of wanting to know more about who is so we can keep bettering people now makes it so that I can put my face in this community to add to it and be a super, super, super positive person because positivity will always win. And then having the opportunity to sit down with you because you share that same thing. You want to make sure that you give back the knowledge you've gained and share it with others. So it's very exciting to have somebody that you keep gaining like minds with, and you see other people that want you to grow and be better with it. So having the support from Dylan, it correlated it. We've built and built and built. From there, now we have this opportunity with you, and great things continue on the horizon for the community to help people and just make sure that we're positive and staying in that mindset that we're here for the community. This isn't a money grab. This isn't clout chase. This is for real. This is how we live our lives. People are important, and that's the most important thing you say is what we do and why it's for the people.
Yeah, we were put on this earth to like take care of each other and uplift each other. So like that's the whole idea of it, and just take care of each other. Be positive. weed out the bad and try to put as much good in the world as you can.
Clips
Strong
and
roots.
Cuttings likes your message. He says that is beautiful. We got Eric Gibson saying, "What's up?" So I love the message. I share that completely,
guys.
especially with my platform and trying to what I create is safe space. There's a lot of judgment, there's a lot of politics, there's a lot of, just Chads and Karens in the community. And when we talk about a community that's about growing, it's very hypocritical when we have so many people trying to tear other people down for either not knowing a lot or being new. Not everybody. Look, there we go. Not everybody's from the legacy markets. Not everybody, has been to Emerald, the Emerald Triangle. Not everybody, grew seeds and brought them from Europe back to the United States back in the 90s. A lot of these people, including myself, I've only been growing for 4 years, and creating that safe space is what this is about, because then people can feel like they want to learn. They feel like they can get connected, and they feel like they're attached to something. It's nothing turns you off more than walking into an environment where you're criticized for one thing or another just because you don't know what you don't know. And for most people don't really have a green thumb or an idea or mindset for gardening to begin with. So when it comes to something like this is a specialized elective that you are seeking out as a human versus a survival skill that you've learned your whole life. So I definitely agree with that.
Absolutely.
I think the best thing about it is when I got into farming, I'm only working on my second grow. I got into it because when my dad passed, I was going through mental strife. I hadn't tried different hobbies, different things, just to find some sort of like connection, peace of mind, shotguns, fish, hunt, whatever it was. And I kid you not, the only thing that let me back to him is this right here. And it was because of all the time I spent chasing down blueberry Kush, blueberry OG, anything that was mixed with DJ short blueberry. That was what Pops liked to help him get through the pain and all the struggles when he fought cancer. So when I couldn't find it, you'd go and smell it, and it did not smell like blueberry. Okay, great. They're calling it blueberry. That's not blueberry. That's what made me grow. And then I was nervous, apprehensive to share my story because I'm used to hiding in the dark. You have to hide. This was something you just had 15 years ago. When I first started smoking at 11, 30 years ago, you'd have to hide and be worried that you were washing your hands. You didn't stink like it. Now it's like grandma next door's growing it. Like, and you love the fact that you see grandma who's got tomatoes in her backyard, but then you know what she's got in her basement. So
Mm.
it's a whole different world now, and it's exciting that it's actually now acceptable, and people don't go, "Oh wow, you use that for that?" Yeah, my ADHD is better because of it. Thank you.
Oh yeah. No, as a person with ADHD and anxiety, I totally agree. And it's one of these things where we're still in a political race, for the legalization. There's a lot of things behind it, but I think that cannabis, mainly its biggest problem with society, is not so much if it's quote unquote dangerous for you or not. It's the fact that how many industries could cannabis interrupt? The oil industry, the lumber industry, the housing
Textiles.
industry. There's 5,000 textiles that cannabis can produce. Oil and
Yep.
clothing and fabric, especially a lot of our
Paper.
precious resources, can all, cannabis inadvertently itself could save the world if we allowed it. It's fortunate that we run a gambit with this, but alcohol, and I say this all the time, which has caused no problems, seems to be working just well for the people. You know what I mean? Because there's nobody ruining their life off of drinking, clearly.
Oh no. Mm-mm.
It's
Uh,
just people, that are smoking weed. It's the weed smokers that are messing up. And I think that's hilarious because it's like we each year, you know, during New Year's, they don't say, "Hey, how many beers have you had?" or "We're going to promote safer drinking and we're going to enforce, drinking and driving more." It's like, "Hey, happy hour and, come from mixers." And how do you think most people are going to get there? But I know that if I'm out in public or I'm out just here, if something were to happen, I'm still in very much full control to be able to react and do something. With alcohol and other substances, you don't have that type of resilience where you're still very much in control. I'm in an illegal state. Hiding is key. Yeah, and that's why when I first started, I started wearing the mask because in Virginia it hadn't become legal, and then it transitioned to being legal, and I was able to eventually take off the mask. But it's one of those things too where prohibition has been around forever. They were doing this with alcohol. Almost 100 years ago. So nothing's really changed. It's just this man-made war on drugs, which, in my opinion, it fuels a lot of finances to the government, to agencies, to other things. And with cannabis, you have a big cop out because cannabis, one, to have a lot of it takes up a lot of space. It smells. It's hard to conceal. When you talk about things like cocaine or heroin or fentanyl, these are things where lower amount doses can cause way more damage. They can be concealed way easier, and the punishments, like if you get certain weed charges, that could ultimately affect your chances of scholarships and other things in the academic world. If you got arrested for cocaine, they don't really, they're not going to make a big deal out of that, and that's been shown that people that use cannabis have been way more subjected to criticism than people that use cocaine. I mean, if you think about all the people that use cocaine in the world, a lot of them are like heavy business people, and everybody, your moms, your dads, your uncles, back in the 80s, it was everywhere.
Disco.
Why are we acting like it's so new that people are getting high in today's world when it was the thing back then? You know what I mean? It's funny how it's mocked and used in movies and publications and books and novels and all this creative stuff. But when it comes to practicality of use for private consumption, that's a problem.
Yeah.
So I'm
The
kind of going
private
on a
sector.
rant, but
No,
yeah.
brother, that's literally how we feel. That's why this is something that D and I mean, I didn't mean to jump over you, D, there, but this is one of those things that
I'm good.
since I've been 11, this is a God's honest truth. It's not fair. I feel negative and terrible for doing it. I would trade my Ritalin for weed because Ritalin made me feel like a zombie. Weed fate made me feel alive. That's the
I
only
take
way I can
relief. I
explain
know
it.
what you mean.
And it's literally like when I had it, I just didn't like rainbows weren't bright. Sunshine didn't feel good. And that's the only way I can explain my experience with that. And then once I found this was my aha moment in life. Creativity, drawing, art, just football. I felt even better when I went out and played football because I knew I was happy.
Oh yeah.
Yeah,
And when you
honestly,
look at mental health, it's huge.
another reason I started this stuff was due to the fact of being in a non-legal state. Like, I actually started a cannabis policy, like I guess project. It's a project, cannabis policy project, trying to like tell the legislator and educate them on all the medicinal purposes and all the things that it can bring to the state and to the people. Um, so like I've been fighting them with that for like a few months, trying to like send them letters, educate them, uh, get as many people involved as I possibly can that are local, um, that I do know that are users as well. You know, so
Well, good for you, dude. I mean, that's what we need. We need people on the ground that are either making content about it, educating people about it, helping break the stigma, going to Congress. And, that's what I'm getting into in the near future myself, which is, more lobbying and writing letters and actually doing that because, it's one thing that be like, oh, yeah, we should be legal. But it's another thing to actually get out there on the streets with people and be like, no, we're gonna go fight for this for real, and we're gonna go, use our whatever we bring to the table, which could be any type of talent, and we're gonna use that as a vehicle to drive the narrative.
That's a win because at that point, if we all form that and come together, everybody wins because you can't hide in the darkness if it's all in the light. Like that's the whole point of it is to make sure that we are all on the same front. So he's got the right vision, and I'm willing to, like you said, take it to as far as we had to go to make sure that it's supported. So that's an amazing way to put that.
grown in the darkness, smoked in the light, man.
My brother.
You see all that?
Ooh,
Should
that
I,
looks
you
so
think
good.
you think I should roll more? People give me shit on social media. Oh, Lacey, my wife's not watching. people give me shit on social media because of how much weed that I
I mean,
roll
I
in my
think you could roll a little
joints.
bit more, maybe just a little bit more.
All right, let's empty this jar.
Oh my goodness.
I
Yeah.
rolled up a little
Yeah.
one. I'm over
You
here. I'm
never
gonna have to
smoke
make
too
another
much.
one.
Well, see, the thing is, and that's why homegrown is so great, because you become weed rich. So, you never run out of weed, and you got a harvest right behind it, so you can smoke more. And then two, you're in control of your flavors. Three, sometimes, and I'm not downing all dispensaries, but sometimes you spend like $250, $300 on what you think is like the primo ounce because you want something to wow you, and you get home and you're like, what the fuck is this? Like I paid this much for this. And sometimes when I grow my own, I remember when I used to go to the dispensary all the time. And when I travel, when I
These
was
things.
on tour last year, I went to a lot of dispensaries because I just don't travel with it. I don't want to I don't want to play around with the FAA. I got too many places to go, and I don't want that type of drama. And there were several dispensaries that I was just like, I'm surprised that people would even come here. Like, some of it looks like some like hole in some back alley where some guy's like, hey, you want some weed? Come this way. And then you like walk around the back of the building. It's like some are like jewelry stores, others are not. All right. So if I roll this, I think I'm gonna need 3 papers. But
It's a good one. You might need like 3 papers, 3 or 4 papers for that.
That's a definitely a two-hander.
oh yeah, this is gonna be like a foot long sub. You know what I mean? I did get the raw little cone, or the raw tape, so you can make it as long as you want.
I love it.
Well, there you go.
Love it.
How do you like that?
And as you can see, here, I'll spray it out a little bit more for context.
We're looking at 7 there, right? Maybe more.
I'd probably say we're around 7. I'm actually getting people together who want to so I'm trying to do a collective session where everybody rolls an ounce joint, and then we all smoke our ounce joints.
I'm down.
I've never done that, but it's on my goal list. It's just like roll an ounce joint. I want to do the raw cone one, the big ones that they do, but that's 23 ounces that it takes. And I don't want to, I have a lot of weed from home growing, but I don't want to burn through all of it, So I'm like, we'll start with the ounce, and then we'll work our way up. If we get a good return and people like it, we'll go bigger next time. I can only fit
that's
3
when we just get like a collective of
grams in
people
1J.
to do it,
We heard of barbecues. Well, that's a blunt BQ. It's a BYOO.
Yeah, when you couldn't trust the supply. All right. So yeah, I think we're gonna do 3 papers, or maybe I should make it elongated.
Oh, like a Prego?
Like should I do 3 wide? What does the chat think? Should we do like 3 wide or 4 like this so it's longer?
I think if you did the longer one, you'd get a better flavor profile. Fatter one, you're gonna get a better resin profile.
Fatter one. Yeah. The one thing I do like about the longer joints is not just because I'm just trying to blow through weed, but the flavor seems to be there. And I think it has to do with the resin production because of how it burns, and because there's so much, it in a way it's like preheating. So I feel like it decarboxizes the weed just slightly before you're actually smoking it, so it's more activated versus like a smaller joint where the flame and the heat is going so fast as you're pulling. Do I have truth to that?
Actually, that's that butane. Right. Yeah, that butane. If you do like a skinny little jib, you get that butane flavor. So I'm already down to the butane flavor. So I'm already sick of it. So with that big old one there, you roll a double wide, you'll enjoy it all the way to the end.
All right, then that's what we're gonna do. All right, let's go for it.
Well, while you're rolling, I'm gonna jump into the who is, because that way you can start doing that.
Yes, please.
And D, I love
Yep.
you, brother. And I got to say this first and foremost. Shout out to my brother D for one, creating our collective, two, providing me with his position because he has that much trust in myself and what the mission we both support is. And I got to shout out Iceman. He has been nothing but instrumental in making sure that I am doing right by my plants. When I ask questions, he helped me top my first plant the other day. So I got to shout him out for that. The community is great. If you have questions and you find people, they will help you. They will make you better. And that's another thing I love. So with that being said, the opening intro is every so often a grower comes along who isn't just growing plants. He is cultivating people. Someone whose roots run deep in both the soil and the soul. Today we're sitting down with a brother who's redefined what it means to grow, not just for yields, but for healing. There is more than cannabis. This is culture. This is consciousness. Ladies and gentlemen, Gromies and guardians of the collective flame, with me today and my boy Elevated Healing Farms, we have Madman Plant. It is a pleasure
Man.
and an honor.
Well, I am super glad to be here, my dudes, and what a great intro. And I love the speech. You know, it really ties in the mission of the conversation. And I think that's so important to, kind of have that mission statement right up there. So I am so happy to be with both of you guys.
That is a blessing right
We
there,
are
man.
thankful to be with you.
So when people say Madman, what Madman Plant, what does that name mean to you?
Okay, so MadManPlant comes from when I was first started growing. So I had a very close friend of mine who actually convinced me to start growing, and he started because we used to go to the dispensary together, and he got convinced by another person that one, he could save way more money, two, he could have way better stuff, and three, it'd be a lot easier than he thought it was. So he started growing first, and then he told me about it, and I was like, "Well, shit, I need to get on it too." So then I got on it with him, and we just started growing. And he actually dropped out of it, and he doesn't actually grow anymore, which is kind of sad. But when we first started growing in Virginia, it wasn't legal, and I had a 4x4 for the very first time. And when I first planted my first seed, I thought I was like insane. I was like, "This is nuts," like I'm doing something that I shouldn't be doing, And then I started planting even more seeds, and I'm just like, I'm a madman with this shit, like, you know what I mean? Like I just can't stop. And it was just madman, came right to it, and then I created the scientist character, and with the scientist character, that kind of took on its own form. And then for a while, when I first started, I actually had a voice changer and full mask. I didn't show my arms. And then as Virginia opened up and became legal, so did, all of the things I was doing, and I got to a point where I really wanted to make a true impact with the community. So I figured I'd take off the mask and really just start to connect. And now my mission is really about healing and showing people the benefits of mental health and using cannabis to grow not only yourself, but your platform, to be able to make money off of it, to be able to travel. I mean, whatever your goal is, I mean, you can accomplish it. You just need the right tools, you need some leverage, and I mean, you can really go far. And as somebody that came into this, and then 4 years later have already successfully gone on tour, I work with sponsorships to help fund a lot of the things that I do. It's all because of cannabis. And that world, is a mad world for me, because in a way, I've been heavily criticized for cannabis use. I almost got kicked out of the Freemasons for using cannabis. I got kicked out of being my son's den leader because the guy who was in charge of the den was a DEA agent. And he's like, "I don't know if it's against the rules, but he's like, I'm going to find a way to remove you because I don't approve of what you do." And I've dealt with serious people who have really tried to put like major roadblocks in my ways for being a cannabis user, and it's very frustrating because what it's just kind of like the stigma about different people. Like if you look at like the LGBTQIA, everybody is so weird about their community, but half of the shit that they're worried about seeing is never portrayed in public. That would be in an
Correct.
intimate setting. Just like with smoking, you have such a problem with people smoking, but 99% of the time, where are people when they smoke? They're at their house, they're in their cars between, while they take a break, during work. They're doing it respectfully and, and constructively. And yet you act like we're these like methed out, junkies that can't control our addiction. They're going to be laid out on the street. No, that's methadone and all these other crazy things that are out there. Cannabis is a healing product and a medicine. And when you start to recognize that, you start the appreciation. Before I started growing, believe it or not, was actually used to be against weed. I actually thought that weed made you fucking stupid and that most people who smoked weed were criminals. And that's because I used to want to be in the police department. And then I got arrested for doing 115 miles an hour in a 65 late at night at 3 o'clock in the morning. And I was like, well, I don't want to do this anymore. And then I went to my friend and I was like, hey, dude, I was like, you know what? I decided I don't want to be a cop anymore. I was like, I would love to smoke weed. And he's like, I'm not going to give you weed. He's like, you want to be a police officer? I was like, no, I changed. And he's like, you know what? Fuck it. He's like, if you set me up, I really don't give a shit. And then he sold me weed. And when I first started smoking weed, believe it or not, I used to get very paranoid. Like we couldn't have this conversation. I could barely stand up. I'd have to like sit down. And it wasn't only until I was like, you know what? All of my friends do this. Everybody I know fucking does this. What the fuck is wrong with me? So I started doing it, and then I got heavy into psychedelics, and I love my psychedelics. But what I have really found through it is, in a way, to find your sanity. I feel like in a way you kind of almost got to lose it, and so that's where the whole Madman plant comes from. Is because felt like I was losing my mind while trying a new venture of life. All right, so listen, I was able to roll a joint, but I only had this much left, so maybe like a gram did not fit in here. But the joint is rolled, and I'm
Is that
going to go.
that could be the appetizer? What's left over, you could roll up a little pinner as an appetizer. I'm burning through that one quick.
I got the venti for that.
I like it. I like it. See, you're ahead of my own thought. I love that.
Yep. So now I'm gonna add the glass tip, which I add separate. Some people give me shit. They're like, you should be doing that all in one, but sometimes with the really big ones, it's easier to just add it last. But continue on.
So you already segued into what my next question is, and that was such an amazing description of the Madman plant that it fits you, brother. I literally have to sit there that it made me draw in, and I was enamored by it because that told me the story of why, when, where, and who. And it made me realize that the reason why you do what you do is because the plant made you who you are, and this is why you want to give back to the community. So that's absolutely amazing. I'm grateful for that answer. What ties into it is what was that moment when growing became more than just growing? It's when did it become the therapy that makes it so you're like, this is why I do this?
Well, I think just like anybody, you get your first harvest and you just realize one, the quality, two, you did this, like, this is because of you. And then three, when you look at dispensaries and other places, like you're just like, I could deal with, hold on, I gotta fix this. I could deal with the whole thought of playing, cannabis roulette every time I go to the dispensary, or I could be able to like hand pick and choose what I wanted. And when you realize that growing is not as hard as it looks, it's more about mental than physical. You just realize, yeah, dude, this is so much easier. This makes so much more sense. Like, why wouldn't I be doing this?
Absolutely. It what I've figured out in the last 90 days, patience is the most important thing in this entire thing. That's what I've learned so much because if you
Mm.
rush anything, you've messed up already. So it slowed down my approach on everything. It just slowed down my approach with my family. My son's autistic. I love this kid, but
My
he
son's
is.
autistic. That's cool.
DB, you know, hey, the same situation. We love it. It's the whole just like
Yep.
you have to slow down, have patience, and understand, and be able to think differently at different times because of it's never going to be a constant in certain areas. So this has given me a whole different realm of peace that I'm able to focus more on different areas because I'm already grounded in a different level.
Yep.
So you say, grow a great human before you grow a great garden. Take
Oh,
us
so
back to how that philosophy was born.
that's actually on my wall. You can't see behind me, but it actually says, "How can you grow a great garden if you can't grow a great human?" And that is my philosophy when it comes to garden. And the what it means and it talks about is instant gratification. You know, a lot of times in life, especially when we're growing and we're developing, you know, that real first taste of success really draws you in. But right after that, you know, it's easy burnout, you know, failure, you know, things happening, things going wrong. There's a lot of things that we deal with in the
They
garden.
decided to
And
call me. Sorry, guys.
what?
Somebody picked up the phone and tried to reach out and touch a homie, and it was like, "Hey, freeze that!" I'm like, "No."
Oh, you good?
Oh yeah, I'm good. I did the D&D.
Okay. Are you ready for me?
Absolutely. I am so sorry for the delay
Oh no, you're
there.
fine. I didn't know if you were talking to me or somebody else. So
Absolutely.
all
So
right.
I'm so sorry. Take us back to how that philosophy was born.
Okay, so pretty much the philosophy is it's about instant gratification and the fact that most times when we're growing on our garden 60 to 115 days with autos or even fast photos, you have a harvest. You can go through complete seed to harvest, right? And you can see the change. Every day you go into your garden, you can see that your garden is progressing. You can see that it looks different than the day before, right? So with all these things, you're constantly seeing the change within your garden. When it comes to 60 to 90 days in a human's life, you may not see anything. It could take 5 years for you to really see something happen. And I think a lot of times when we look at gardening, we look at people who are spending their time, their energy, their money, their resources, you know, all this time, you know, they're networking to make a great plant. But when it comes to the human's life, there's a lot of people that don't apply that same energy to their life. So their gardens grow, but they don't as people. And you know, that's a real thing, you know, and it's how can you let your garden become so great if you can't become great with it? Because to provide for your garden are the same type of task and responsibilities you would have to provide for yourself. But a lot of more people are interested in what happens immediately. What's something I can see that's working, and it's harder when you can't see it.
I literally did the topping yesterday, and I knew nothing was going to happen immediately. But today I can already see the plant has spread out, and you can see that now there's a ring around my leaves, like it's pushing energy. You can see that it's made a change in what it's actually doing with its physiology, and the science behind this now has made me more enthralled with that as a passion versus consuming it as now a hobby. Whereas consuming it used to be the main focus, just so I'd have a different feeling. Now it's just the hobby because of doing the cultivation.
Yeah.
D, so with that, you know, before we jump into segment two, there has to be some wonderful things that, based on what we just talked about, you have some sort of absolute. I'm sure there's a question fuming there. I know it.
I mean, I got all sorts of questions, to be completely and totally honest. Um,
Go for it.
but I mean, honestly, let's go into segment two and let me start it off. You've built an entire movement around accessible cannabis education. What made you want to teach others, not just like growing, like to grow yourself, you know?
Well, I've always been a teacher through teaching karate to, you know, children to adults, to working with special needs, to doing a lot of stuff like, you know, the Boy Scouts and other volunteer stuff. So I love teaching. I love connecting with people. I love being around people, helping people kind of discover that aha moment that they're looking for. So I've always been a natural teacher. So I just get a natural high off of just speaking, being around people, really helping people understand. As a person that comes from a place where, I once felt very lost and, once wondered whether I was going to find my way or not, to creating a life for myself, to doing all this other stuff. It's magical. And when you can lock somebody on and you can take somebody on like that and really show them that it's possible, I mean, that's where the magic lives. And I think a lot of times, you know it's something that we don't necessarily know how to self access, and sometimes you need to be introduced to it, but it's something that's real and that really makes the difference. And when it comes down to, you know year after year, time after time, you can really start to see the trajectory of what's actually happening versus, just the thought of wondering if it's even possible. Because half the time, everything is just built around, either imposter syndrome or the thought that I may not be good enough, or what if it doesn't work out, or what will people think? And that can really rob you of the soul, especially when you're trying to do something. So having something that really grounds you and really says, no, you have a purpose. And also, I think a lot of times you have to be self-serving. You have to have a reason of yourself of why you're doing something, not just because somehow it's going to benefit you. Somehow, this is going to make you different and see different and be different, and somehow will gain some experience that only this would be able to provide. All
That
right,
kind of leads into the next one, honestly.
there we go.
Man, that thing looks nice.
Yeah, the rolling job of this is great. How I connected the tip is a little loose. That's why when I see raw next, I'm going to be like, I need to develop tape. So just this whole thing needs to be sticky. So like this, I need to stick it. Bam! It's all tape. It all locks it down, because when you do it, it still leaves lifted areas, which if you know what you're doing, you can
You're
kind of
fine.
work around it. But yeah.
So you speak openly about mental health and healing side of like cultivation. Um, what do you say to someone who's struggling, like who feels lost and thinks growing can't change that?
Well, one thing, I was just at a mental health summit, and a lot of times, they think, a lot of like resources or practices are all under this umbrella, and it should be sectioned out. But the biggest thing is, everybody's different and it's all individualized. So what I might say to somebody could be different than I might say to somebody else, depending on their situation. The biggest thing about purpose and feeling anything or feeling lost is reminding yourself that 80% of what you think is in your head. The reality is that may not be true. And it may just be you thinking that. And sometimes when you're in it, it's hard to think differently. But I would recommend people to get inspired, become passionate, whatever you love, find a way to be creative and let that be your drive. So that takes you away, because once you're inspired and you feel like you have purpose and you feel like you're doing something, a lot of those other feelings just kind of disappear. And you just naturally stop to think about them, because you see the progression in yourself. And that's why it's so important to believe and be active and start your journey early, whatever that is. And it could change. What you set out to do one day may not be what you're doing the next day, and there's nothing wrong with that.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Accept it as it comes and appreciate every day.
Ah,
It
What you
sounds like it
smoking on?
came correct.
smokes perfectly. What?
What you smoking on? Is that one of your own cultivars?
Oh yeah. So one of my friends was just like the other day. He's like, you know what? I just realized you only smoke your own weed, and I was like, well, dude, I don't grow my own weed. So on my table here, this is my community weed stash. So when people come over and they need to smoke, this has like a mixture of everything that I've grown. So I have
Oh, that's
that,
cool.
and then in my jars that I had my Tropicana cherry and my Voodoo Larry. So it's a mixture of some of the stuff in there, Voodoo Larry, Trop Cherry.
Hell yeah. I'm doing some wedding
So,
cake from the dispo.
how do you balance the
No,
science and the soul of this plant?
Well, I think the biggest thing with science is really paying attention, to who's in the game as far as science. One of the things I look for is, attending events. Like last year I was at, all the NECAN shows on tour. I go to MJ BizCon every year. One of the things is, staying up with the manufacturers, the distributors, the people that are actually in it. The unfortunate side with this plant is there's so much bro science, and there's just so much information about it. Some is true, some is not true. The biggest thing to do is get educated, and there's a lot of good books out there. And I think the balancing the soul of it is just understanding that, what I was talking about earlier is we don't have to take it that seriously. And I know a lot of people like to be like very particular about things, but when it comes down to it, we are smoking to get elevated. And we all come on here from different walks of life, different perspectives, philosophies about the plant, why we smoke. And I think we need to more understand that cannabis, just like food, music, is very diverse. You know what I mean? And there's just so many ways about it, and I think it's just educating people of that, reminding people of that. There's people that just started smoking yesterday. There's people like me who started growing 4 years ago, and that's it. Does it make me better or worse than anybody that's been in it longer? No, but we all have our own perspective. And the great thing is there's a million ways to grow this plant. So, whether you know all the science or not, I'm not some of these influencers where I know all the science. I classify myself as your average grower. If you're looking to grow great cannabis, I can show you what I do that gets those results. If you really want to know about molecules and the endocannabinoid system and all this other stuff, there are a lot of people out there. My focus is really on beginning growers. I like to be the first impression so they can get excited, they can feel comfortable, they can feel like they're not just going to be like shit on the first time they interact with somebody, because a lot of times you get that, and it's unfortunate because we're trying to get as many people on cannabis as possible, and any negative environments that we create could be like, well, maybe the weed community is not for me, and that would be a horrible situation for somebody who truly needs to be a part of it.
we just went through something recently like that. And when I first jumped on here, somebody approached me to buy likes, and I'm like, why would I buy likes when I'm my genuine self? And it's
The
like,
likes,
uh,
but here's the thing, dude. The likes don't really mean anything, because you want community. It,
Community,
I
yep.
went on tour with national sponsors who paid for me to go on tour. I only had 9,000 followers on my biggest account last year. It's not about followers. It's about creativity. It's
message.
about the people watching. It's about you guys. It's about everybody that's out here. What can we do? How can we elevate ourselves, brands, people, ideas, and really help carry a message? That's what it comes down to. This whole philosophy of I need money, I need this, I need that. It's really all bullshit.
Yep.
Yeah, when money became involved was when everybody got stopped getting along, unfortunately.
Well, that's another discussion, because most people, they want you to be successful, just not more successful than they are. And when you become more successful, or your energy starts to change, or you start to do something different, yeah, it's gonna ruffle some feathers. I've lost a lot of people that used to support me because I started elevating and doing different things. And when you're focused on you, You're not always focused on, the attention of everybody else. And some people can really get offended. But, at the end of the day, you're showing up for you, not them. You know what I mean? They're the one, you're creating content that supports the narrative and supports, their interest and, connects with them and builds that authentic relationship. But if you're only creating content because you think you're going to get something out of it, you will be poorly mistaken. It's like walking the casino with $100 expecting to walk out a millionaire. It's not going to happen like that. It's all about building, whether it's your community, whether it's your page, whether it's your content, whether it's your voice. You need to really work on the foundation, because at the end of the day, what dives deeper than that one video that went viral? You know what I mean?
That's great advice. That's a great piece of mine too. Just making sure that focus towards
making an
not
impact.
one
Yep.
thing. One thing, it's towards the all of it. Because if it's one thing, it's for everybody. It's going to make an impact regardless of what it is.
Look, see that ash?
Dude, that's a chunky. It looks like a stogie. I'm not gonna lie to you. Like, that's a golf course worthy. You put it behind the ear. Yeah.
Well, if we hold it up to a Bic lighter. That's a full size lighter. That's not a mini. If we hold it up to a whack it.
Oh wow. Got some girth.
That's amazing.
No, yeah. But people are like, if you need to smoke that much weed to get high, and it's like, no, I really only needed the first 2 puffs. I just like to marinate on it.
Yeah, right, what up?
Yeah. Yep.
Absolutely. That's. I think my first experience where somebody approached me like that, and then when D came into my life and he's like, I want to know your story. And I was like, dude, I don't want to pay for it. He's like, wait, whoa. He's like, no, man, no, I promise. He's like, I'm not charging you nothing. He goes, I want to put you on because your story was meaningful, et cetera, et cetera. It was instantaneously the refreshing feeling of I was worried about getting put on by a scammer, and then it met him, and it was like, all right, cool. They're good people still exist. I know I'm in the right place.
Mm-hmm.
And then you go through the feeling of putting stuff on there and going, do people like me? Am I liked? And then you see that people start following, and then people start sending you messages, and they're like, man, keep doing what you're doing. It's that feeling of going, all right, I've now found where I belong, because you can walk in the streets and people will pay no mind to. But here on this, now social media is the real world in a certain extent, because people see you regularly here. This is the person I am in the street, so some people go, what the hell is this guy with blue hair? He's 6'1", 330. Like, but it's because they're looking at my hair, and I'm a Detroit Lions fan, so they look at me and they go, all right, cool, you're like the Lions. And I'm like, oh wait, I have blue hair, I forgot.
Yeah, no, I'm, as a person that has pink hair, people either hate it or love it. But in a way, I like it because it's a good background check. Because if you don't like my blue hair, you're definitely not going to like. I mean, if you don't like my pink hair, you're definitely not going to like me.
True story. Hey, D, what's the contest we got going so that we can get me to have pink hair like the Madman?
If he gets to 1,000 likes, he will dye his hair pink for saving the tatas for breast cancer awareness.
Well, that's what I originally did, and that's why my hair is pink. Because last year we had an event with 400 people. I raised $9,000 to hold the event. The event was free. The vendors were free. We had 420 pounds of food that was donated by my friend who owns a meat shop. That was free. We donated $2,600 to breast cancer. It's the Pink Ribbon Boutique. But that's actually why I dyed my hair pink, and then it looks so good, it stayed that way.
I love it. That's very. So I said, he can rock it. So I figured I might as well do it inspirationally, especially I'm sitting down here with you. So that is going to be what we're doing. So we're going to try and even do the beard. It's ginger, so I might as well just make it bright pink and walk around.
Telling you, makes man feel good.
I used to wear pink a lot when I worked for a Spurton company. Now it's fashionable. So plus That's a conversation starter. I'm a people person through and through. So somebody that takes the time to go, I really love your hair. That's somebody I absolutely want to hang out with. Just like you said, if you go and you cringe, I probably don't want to. We waste the oxygen on the words because it's mom and dad. If you don't have enough something nice to say, don't say anything else. It's not nice.
Yes.
If she's watching this now, she's like, "That's my boy."
Brian, did you want to go into the next topic on there with him, or did you want me to do that?
I not gonna lie to you, I got caught in the moment just because that's that thing, and you just kind of enjoy. So I will gladly jump in
Oh, me
here
too.
to. So let's see here. Where did we start? Okay, so wait a second. Oh, there we go. I had to open it properly. So they say what you feed your plants, they feed back to you. Maybe that's your mission, or why your mission feels like nourishment. I apologize, I missed the word there. The dude got me. Not just information. So, with you having the mad science for the hydro and the DNA art of precision, what is the technical brilliance and the innovation behind your grow systems, and what do you think would make it so that you could give a piece of information to a relatively new grower like me in that aspect?
Okay, well, I'm a very diverse grower. What's going on, Iceman? Um, I've grown in all types. So I started with living soil. I then went to Lococo. And then earlier this year, Current Culture, the company, reached out to me and asked me if I would like to do hydro. So I am new to hydro. And I said, I've never done it before. And they said, hey, we'll send you a system if you want to try it. And I said, sure. So they sent me the system, and we had my growth series earlier. And I did have some issues, but it was more about the environment. But when it comes to the overall, personally, I don't taste the difference. I taste my weed. Um, when I was doing living soil, I was doing Deep Water Nutrient Company, Great Lakes, water only soil, and that was my go-to. I would use Gaia Green, and then I've used Down to Earth and some other stuff, top feeding and everything like that. Then when I moved into my autopot system, when I had the tents, I did Coco 70/30. I did all Athena. So with my Athena lineup, I had a really great run. And then when I did my DWC, I used the Culture Solutions that's designed for DWC, and I've had great runs with that too. So basically, my recommendation would be it's always good to start out in soil because soil is very forgiving. Also, think that growers should really take the time to grow out their plant for the first time to its entirety so they can really see what it grows, how it grows, what it looks like when it grows straight up, what it looks like when it's stressed and trained. There's a lot of different ways because there's a million ways to do this. The foundations are what do the roots grab onto? Are they digging into soil, or are they on net pots, sat in, oxygenated water? It really all depends. So I always say living soil, then do like an auto pot system, then go to deep water culture, because when you do auto pots, you're feeding a reservoir. When you're doing living soil, you're feeding the soil. When you're doing DWC, you're feeding the actual system. So um, it helps to know the benefits
Cycles.
and the cycles a lot more than just trying to jump in. Now, could you have a success going into each and every one of them right away? Absolutely. This isn't rocket science. This isn't MIT stuff. Most of the issues that are caused by growers are by overdoing it or doing too much. There are many times where I've ran into an issue. I literally stopped my process, gave it water for about a week or two, and then it unlocked its problem and it continued on, and I didn't have to do anything crazy. There's just so many things that kind of play into that. So it can be an open-ended question. Mostly think about your space, your location, what you have access to, and then figure out what you want to grow in.
Well, with all of that, how would you say that did AI help integrate into that and make it so it made your grow plans easier? Did it make it so that you had to do more to make it so that that was a easier situation, or was there a specific time
Exactly.
where you thought going into it where that it would make it so that would benefit you to give you a little bit more time so you didn't have to think about it?
Ask me the question once again. I was just thinking, Doctor, get it right, and Iceman. Sorry.
Oh, no worries at all. You're making sure the crowd knows that you're paying attention and showing love. That's awesome. When how did you just like the integration process for AI and the data into your grows, and what impact did that give you once you could figure out how to control the data that you were getting back from it?
Okay, so when I made that video using AI, I mean that's very like base. Um, I would suggest, seeing, always when you go to like a new nutrient line, I always do the lowest recommendation to see how the plant reacts to it, because every plant, genetic and everything, is going to be different. They're all going to react differently. There might be a plant where you ran really heavy and stacked, and the next run, for whatever reason, could even be the same genetic. Unlikely if it's the same genetic, but if it's the same seed from the same seed pack, it could be not tolerant of that. So my recommendation with AI, and that is, AI is great, but you really want to learn these things, learn about the deficiencies, learn what you're looking for. You get to a point where I don't even know. I don't, like, for instance, I don't keep track of the weeks that I veg and I flower for. I just look at the bud, and I've done it so much that I can look at the cannabis and I just know when it's ready by the way the hairs are, the way the structure is, the way it's grown out on the plant, the colors, based on if there's high greens and still coming through, like calyx is still forming, whether, whatever. So learn it, like, and that's why even like when like flying a plane, they try to cheat you by instrument and then also by sight, because there are times where you're going to be in your garden, and yes, you could run to ChatGPT, and yes, it can give you an answer. But remember, ChatGPT is a robot, right? It's only going off its best resource and what it comes up with. It could still be wrong. Always, talk to people. And that's why community is so important, because if you run into issues, you're going to get 1,000 answers online, but you are going to get people who are very detailed, who have been through this a lot, that can help navigate. So I would recommend a balance. Now, one thing that I do AI for is I will take an entire feed schedule. I will tell it how many gallons my reservoir is, and I'll get a baseline for the measurements, all the way from veg to flower. And that keeps me, on a line of, I can kind of guesstimate what I'm doing. So I can start off and say, okay, this one might be 220 milliliters, but I'm not seeing any tip burn. So let's go up to 240 and see what happens. You know what I mean? And that's why I said, every grow is different. There's not like this one solution fits all, but talking about it and not freaking out, if something goes wrong in your garden, you know, the biggest thing you can do is throw everything at it, because if you throw everything at it, you're not going to know what's going wrong, because now everything's changed. Start with one thing. Oh, I think I might have a lockout. I might have a lockout. Start feeding it water, bring it off its nutrients until growth starts to continue, which it most likely will. But if you start throwing more nutrients, then the plant's totally locked out. You're stunning growth. You're wasting weeks of veg. There's a lot of things that we do as growers because we care about our gardens. There are babies. We don't want anything to happen, and we wind up damaging more than we benefit in the beginning. Then you get an advanced grow, and you're like, a couple of yellow leaves. I'll just pluck those off right now. Nobody will see that shit. You know what I mean? It's like, oh, this, it'll be fine in a week. I'll do this. So
Do you want to see my oopsie for my first grow that actually made an autoflower herm and produce seeds and make
Let's
its
do
own
it.
pheno
Well, that
that's
could
probably
be
getting cut
anything.
later tonight?
Well, and just so you know, that could be
It was
anything. It
my
doesn't
fault.
have to
No,
be
I know it was my
you.
fault. It was my fault because when I did it, I was heavily elevated and I switched nutrients in the middle of a cycle because I was using part of it, the
Yeah, that shouldn't.
manufacturer, not all of it. And it was my fault. I did 1/5 of what it regulated, and it was at budding already. So it was like I don't like you, and it stressed it. But it was a oops dummy mistake that is going to benefit you for later. Um, It hasn't had water in a couple of days. Today is the last day, but
It looks like a healthy budded cannabis plant.
it was my second plant for my first grow, and it's literally I'm shocked with the results because I didn't know I would be capable of producing that. But God, that smells good. I'm so yeah. Seeing it come to fruition, even though yes, it's seeded, I'm gonna make it into hash because I generally love me some hash rosin, and then I'm gonna use the little ladies that she's gonna give me later, and I'm gonna plant a whole crop.
Well, you will have to sort the ones out because there's a good chance that the other ones might herm as well. So
Absolutely.
it'll be like a 50-50. So if you want to go ahead and take that journey, you can. Just remember, as soon as the seed sacs start to form, so does the pollen. It doesn't have to go into flower for it to pollen, and that's why you can't veg out a male and a female together, because even though the pollen stalks aren't open yet, it still has pollen available and becomes airborne off the plant and can easily go into that. So if you do have a plant like that and you have veg plants, you got to keep that away because you could inadvertently
Yep.
breed unintentionally, and now you're left with millions of seeds and not so much nice, hard, dense nugs.
That one's in its own tent now. As soon as that happened, I cleaned out my main tent, which is a much bigger area, and it took hours of cleaning that out. And my filter that went over my char carbon was not. When I knocked it out outside, it dropped a plume of yellow pollen. So it was definitely one of those things that before I put my new next round in there, I spent hours cleaning it to make sure that I caught all of that and hopefully made sure that I don't do that because I don't want a whole bunch of seeds.
Yeah, but no, the plant looks great, and you should be proud of yourself. Great job for the
Thank you.
first time. I
I
agree with
appreciate
Iceman.
that. That's been this whole journey is the more I've learned, it's because of going into the community. You when you said the chat GPT and you said the things that you said, I had to like that was the correlation for me because I at first I was using chat GPT and I'm like this is so stupid when I could actually now reach out to somebody because I was picking the guy's brain every single day. He and I would pick the phone up and spent hours on the phone. Our wives were like, "Okay, dinner's ready. Are you guys gonna get off the phone? Like, what's up?" And I'm like, "No, I'm picking his brain. He's giving me information. Hold on, let me do this stuff." And then Iceman, I love that gentleman. He has been the person that he goes, "You've been the luckiest moron I've seen." He goes, "You could ruin this plant, but you're actually doing great because of the
No,
mistakes." So when you in a loving way, of course, I mean, he has a very loving personality. It's like it's that dad personality. What are you doing, kid? And let me show you the right way, or let me tell you what you did your shortcomings in specific areas because he wants to,
let me
not
show you or
necessarily see you
something, boy.
fail. Yeah, it's not that he wants to see you fail, but he's not going to give you everything. He wants you to work for it, and that's the thing that I respect most about him is he will give you enough that you have to ask the right question to unlock the next door with him. It's like you're playing Nintendo and you got to beat Bowser for the next level. You're like, dang it, I got to get him again. But doing that, it's unlocked a whole different level of respect for our community because it's like I'm going to give you the more that you want, but now I want you to challenge your own brain to ask why because you have it, but why? Why are you doing? Why do you want to know that? So anybody who with that co-birds part of the collective as well. He literally, I chop it up with him, asking questions, shoots, and he's like, "Bro, do this, and you could have this type of thing." Because I didn't know how to LST. I'll be admit it. I didn't know how to do the topping, none of
I
it.
mean,
And
I
then
mean, most people that are born don't know how to walk So what did you expect? You know what I mean? And that's why I really have a problem with people that are so rude and disrespectful, because most people don't know this. Gardening is not a life skill that is taught. You know what I mean? It's not like math. You know what I mean? These are electives that we take on later in life. So yeah, no, that's why, you know, one of these things about creating safe space is it's okay to be a moron, because you don't know what you don't know. Most people don't know what they don't know. That is a fact. You know
Absolutely.
what I mean?
It's for a matter of fact, actually. And that's the thing that resonates so many levels with me, that I've been a teacher, I've been a manager for people for over 20 years now, and it's always been about them, not about me. And the reason why it's always about them is it's a reflection of who I am, how they retain what I provide them with. If I give them no tools, they can't access what they need. And I was a plumber for many years. That was tough love. So you get beat up being a guy who has a soft heart, kind skin. It toughens you up for life, because life's not easy. Being in retail made it so instead of me going to beat the customer up for the corporation, it was, how can I make the corporation win while I'm still helping the customer? Because now it's equal. It's a whole different ballgame. And this collective is now even a bigger thing, because that impacts life.
Iceman's calling you out. He says
He
you're a
is
liar.
lying. Oh, fucker. That's right. I apologize. He did say fucker. I was trying to keep it PC. So
He's not going to let you forget.
I know he has a plan, and that's the reason why I'm gonna just say that I'm his favorite fuckstick, and that's the reason why I'll just put it at that. Now he knows. It's the smile, and that's the reason why he will definitely call me a fucker, and I appreciate it.
That's awesome. So what other questions you guys got for me?
You know, I was jumping off base there just because I got enamored once again. It's one of those things that's, when you have conversations like this, you kind of lose track of it, because you're like, oh, we're just smoking out, having fun, sitting out, being the boys. So,
well, it's cool because, you know, usually I'm the host. So, you know, today I get to be the guest. So I like being asked the questions, because I'm always looking for people to get me on their podcast. But I usually have so many guests lined up for mine. I don't have the opportunity to always jump on, so it's refreshing, so I like it.
I love it. Well, you know, I'm glad we're coming back to this. So D, do you want to jump in, or would you like me to continue, sir?
Yeah, sure, I'll do this next one.
Please do.
So you've done DNA testing with labs like
okay, no, I have not. No? You are referring to my work when I was working with Farmer Freeman, and we were at his lab, and we were doing some video work with his genetic testing. So that's all Farmer Freeman, and he's located here in Washington, D.C. Yeah, believe me, like I said earlier, I'm your average guy that grows. If you want science, I can put you on the people like Farmer Freeman, who fucking tells you everything about that. Like I saw one of the questions about like electroconductivity, and I'm like, listen, I know how to grow weed, you know, like with electricity, you know, like plugging shit in, like PDS. I got a meter for that, you know, like what do you mean? Okay. So yeah, so I don't want to.
No, I didn't buy a distiller, I swear.
Yeah, no, but I would love for you guys to interview Farmer Freeman. He would be a great guest. And if anybody on here needs sex testing, you don't have to wait till the plant is in heavy veg. 2 weeks after it shows its first true leaves, he only needs a piece about like the size of this tip, which is like less than a fingernail. He doesn't need the whole leaf or anything. And within 2 weeks of planting that seed, he can tell you with a 99.9% accuracy if it's male or female, HLVD testing. He can test for thrips, all the diseases, everything. And if you watch my YouTube video where I go to his lab, you will actually see all the high-end machines that they do. And it's not like some guy in his basement. These are like $90,000 machines. He puts it in and it spins it around for an hour, and it can tell him everything he needs to know about it. Like Farmer Freeman is legit. So
love it. Dude.
So those questions, he's your dude.
Heck yeah. Okay. So
that we're gonna have to make happen.
What's the project that you're working on now that you can actually share with us?
Well, great. I mean, right now, my biggest project is the Grow Series. So we have sponsors for that. And right now, we are educating people while I'm learning about DWC because I'm not an expert in DWC. I've only been doing it for like 6 months now. So,
Okay.
and I've only done one grow. But if I can do it, and I'm not the smartest person in the world, but I'm pretty smart, a million other people can do it. So if you're scared about DWC, it's not that complicated. It's just learning a couple of different measures. One thing about DWC is everything happens really, really fast. So biofilm, algae, root rot, these are all things that can happen within 12 to 24 hours. Your system could look great the night before, and the next day you go in and it's sludged out. So it's just everything happens really, really fast and immediate. The project that I'm working on right now is I actually developed a coaching course called Vindic EU Healing Healing for Misfits That Want More. And it's a 6-week program that I'm actually working with a university to get accredited, and I'll be able to teach it through their university. And it applies to my how can you grow a great garden if you can't grow a great human? So MadManPlant equals the question of how do you grow a great garden? Well, you have MadManPlant. How do you grow a great human? And that's with Vindic EU, which is I heal from Romanian because I'm Romanian. So if you give me 2 seconds, I will actually show you the course here. 2 seconds here.
So, D, I think we need to get that link and then be able to put that on the collective's webpage because I think that's something amazing to support.
Absolutely.
And if created the blessing.
Yeah, and if anybody wants to take the course, I actually already have 2 people in the community that are stoners that are actually taking the course and doing the 6-week program with me. So put it on full screen for me real quick here. So this is my course, Vindic EU, and in here is my entire outline. So I'll just read this to you. So this is my product description so you can understand what it is. All right. Coaching for Misfits That Want More is a 12-week, and it's 6 weeks because there's a marination week where you work on the worksheet and then we come back. So it gives you time because I'm not just trying to rush people through a program. I'm actually trying to work with them one-on-one. So it's a 12-week trauma-informed coaching program for people who are done surviving and are ready to start living on purpose. You are here because you need not another strategy. You are here because you want to feel like you again. This program is for misfits, creatives, overthinkers, and survivors who have been carrying too much for too long. You've got ideas, maybe even big dreams, but somewhere along the way, life hit you hard and your voice got quiet. This is a space where you come back to yourself. Using my signature 6-week step program, Vindic EU, we'll walk together from survival to self-led purpose. And we do this in 6 weeks, identifying my core topics, which are revealing the root. And this is uncovering the patterns and beliefs you have about holding you back. We're going to own the voice. We're going to reclaim that authentic expression and speak about your truth. We're going to clarify the vision and define what you truly want. We're going to set boundaries and help you say no and learn how to take care of yourself. We're going to walk it real and take consistent actions that you create. And then we're going to build with purpose and construct a life that reflects your future and your deepest values. And this is for you if you feel stuck, if you're feeling like you're outgrowing your current situation, you're experiencing patterns of anxiety, overwhelm, self-doubt that interfere with your goals. You're ready for guidance that helps you navigate your unique path and committed to deep work of personal transformation through authentic growth. And what it includes is the 6 core modules, a 6-week reflection / integration weeks. That's why it creates 12 weeks. coaching calls, which are an hour one-on-one calls with me, and we walk through all the worksheets together. And then you have all your downloadable exercises and everything. So if you guys do want to learn more about it, I would be more than happy to tell you about it. And if you guys would like to take the course, have you guys enroll. But that would be what I'm working on right now. And what we do every month is we have monthly meetups in person, where I've also done my panels online. American Auto Flower Cup, January 31st. I will be back in Los Angeles, California, to reclaim my title as judge for the second year. And I'm running the mental health panel and platform at American Auto Flower Cup for the second year now. I have my own private room, my own setting. It's really nice, and I'm in a partnership with them, so it is really awesome. So it's a really great thing. But these panels that we have in person are every month, and we get people on, and it's all about deep conversation. So that's what I'm working on.
That's awesome. I love it. It actually kind of like goes into the next thing, honestly.
It's,
what were you going to say, bro?
We definitely have to. I want to be able to, if you're 100% okay with it, I would love to help spread that mission around. And the reason why I would is because that correlates 110% with our mission. So if you're okay with it, I'd love to be able to put that on the collective's Instagram page and whatever else we utilize in any other platform, just so we can spread the word of that, because that's seriously something.
Oh, please do.
I was over here, I'm not gonna lie, I was over here wiping tears away because that hit me on that level. So I appreciate what you're doing, and seriously, thank you. That's amazing.
Well, yeah, and that's why the philosophy is, how can you grow a great garden if you can't grow a great human? MadManPlant, see, when we first started, it was a 3D printing company. In our first 12 months, we were in over 13 countries, did about $30,000 in sales in this exact location where I am now, which used to be full of 3D printers. I didn't want to be a products company because you're just selling products, and with 3D printing, it takes a long time. Filament's expensive. The exchange rate for products to what you make isn't that great in margins, and you spend more time fixing printers than you do printing items. With that, we turned MadManPlant into an education company. So what we do now is we offer paid and free education. The Vindic EU is part of my paid education and my whole EDU platform that follows MadManPlant, which is also on our website. Go to community, click Vindic EU, and it'll have all the information there. But I answer both things for people. I help people grow, and that's what I want to do. And I want to work with people who want more. And that's why I love the new grower, because the new grower, one, doesn't have bad misconceptions. They don't have this attitude of, oh, I've been doing this for 30 years, so what are you going to teach me? We can all learn from each other. I mean, there's somebody that could have started growing yesterday that can teach me stuff. You know, we all specialize in our own areas of what we know most about the plant. The whole goal, the whole purpose was to grow cannabis for ourselves. That's the whole point of being a home grower. And I think it's funny how the world, who will never smoke our product or engage with how we press or do anything, has so much critique on how our weed is when they never even get to try it. You know what I mean? And people are just, it's just toxic behavior for a community that truly needs everybody on board. And when we can heal and build, there's so much more that comes from that than tearing apart each other. And I don't understand, for whatever reason, why in the world we still live in the world where it seems more valuable to tear each other down than to build each other up. It's really not that hard. And it's frustrating to me because, you know, I get a lot of criticism, and you know what I mean? And it's not that I care, but it's just like, imagine if all those words were positive. How many more people would take the chance to start growing today versus being scared because they don't want to ask questions to the world because they don't want to look like an idiot? It's okay to look like an idiot. You should look like an idiot. There are sometimes that I have to ask questions, and there's sometimes where I purposely post videos that are going to get comments because I'm not perfect, and neither am I going to pretend to be. You know, being authentic when it comes to building a brand is so important. And I think it's an undervalued strength that people think that is more of a vulnerability and a risk versus, a gratitude. So, wherever you are in your growing journey, you're on the right path. You're doing it. If you're not killing plants, you're not doing it right. I can't tell you how many times I forgot to plug in my cloner and I've killed my own clones because I forgot to plug in the cloner. I actually have I have a sticker on my cloner that says, "Am I plugged in?" And then on the cord, I have another sticker that says, "Plugged in." So I know I can follow it. And I'm like, "Yep, it's plugged in." You know what I mean? Because shit happens. But yeah, sorry.
I love it. That's respect. I love it, dude. That's respect.
Great.
So that kind
So
of makes me laugh.
Elevated Farms, what you got?
I was say, so you're not just an advocate. You're a mental health voice in the world that rarely talks about it. Like in a world that rarely talks about it. How did you start that mission?
Well,
Like,
great question. So, I was on tour last year, and I started having a lot of conversations with people about suicide. One of the people who created my painting, which I released during my speech, which you can see on YouTube, she was one of the first people who was a cannabis member who had been raped 3 different times. And she gave me the trust to tell her story. And we talked about her entire situation on my podcast in grave detail. And from then, I started talking to more people about mental health. And then I started going to tattoo conventions and setting up my podcast there. And I would talk to people about cannabis, tattooing, and mental health. And I realized, there's such a connection between why people smoke and, what they're coming from or running away from. And I was like, I've always worked with special needs. I've done a lot of work in a lot of different environments with different types of people. So I have a really great background when it comes to being able to work and be able to handle different types of people. It's one of my specialties. And so from there, it was just like, well, not everybody grows, right? So if I'm looking to have conversations with growers, my community's small, but everybody deals with mental health. And if I can build a platform where I can build trust and safety, not only can I get people to say things that they never said before, but I can really pitch cannabis in a new direction as an advocate where it's truly about health and wellness, because we're talking about mental health. And, there's a big connection when we talk about legitimizing this plant as a medicine. We need more conversations, not about the hype about cannabis, but about the science, the economics, the equity, the resource, the development, the studies, the things that put cannabis in a positive light. And what does that than getting any type of person on a podcast to talk about cannabis? I've had people that are in their 70s on my podcast. I have grandmothers. I have brothers and sisters. I've had the U.S. military on my podcast in uniform. You know what I mean? I've had police officers in private conversations. Most police departments have a policy where they cannot do media, so none of it's ever been recorded. But I've even had conversations with cops, and they are in full support of it. So when you look at demographics like that, we have to look at things that make sense to a lot of people. And a lot of people, are hurting. A lot of people have trauma, PTSD, addiction, old habits, things that detract them from being great. But one thing I found with cannabis is most people are turning to cannabis because they want to be them again. I talked to a girl at National Cannabis Festival, and we talked about her worst day as a heroin addict, where she would close all the blinds, she would turn off her cell phone, she would get a magnifying glass, and she would get down on her hands and knees, and she would literally sift through the carpet for hours looking for anything that fell to the floor, right? And she wouldn't talk to people for days. Now she's, got her kids back. She's in their lives. She smokes cannabis. She's having the best time ever. She's been sober for like 6 years, all because of cannabis. You're telling me, that doesn't need to be advertised? So many people, the problem is, have voices, but not everybody has the confidence or the desire to be on camera and profess their testimony or their ideas or their manifesto. And that's also another thing too, is as a podcaster and as you and Elevated sorry, hold on. Elevated Healing Farms. Sorry,
You're okay.
don't ever want to disrespect anybody. Move on. Your thing too is, as podcasters and as people in media creating content, is how can you use what you're doing, which everybody's doing. Everybody's making a podcast, but it doesn't matter about the masses. What it matters about, what we were talking about earlier, is the impact. And if you can connect with people through your conversations and you can get them to say valuable things that can affect other people, you're doing magnificent work. You don't need a big following. You don't need all these people to approve or to show up each time you go live. You need to have purpose. So a lot of it was, I don't want to be like all these other people who just go ahead and, all they talk about is the highs of cannabis and, oh, it's so great. And the terps, we got enough people that do about that. And I'm not, like I said, I've only been smoking for X amount of years, growing for X amount of years. So that type of feedback, I don't necessarily possess. I'm more of a new age grower and a fast learner. You know what I mean? So a lot of what I've learned is in the last 4 years. So, I've always learned working with people and how to work with people. So that's where, to answer your question, that's where it all tied in. Is just, what did I know best? I know how to talk to people and get people to open up. So I was like, well, mental health, opening up, smoking weed, that kind of all goes together. And then bam, you know what I mean? What can I make out of that?
Yeah, I'm not gonna lie, that resonates a lot with me. I lost my father to suicide 13 years ago, so I completely get that, man. That's mental health is a big thing, and men don't talk about it enough.
No, you don't. So D, condolences. Still, we've talked about that beforehand, and it's never easy to have to talk about that because
You can sit there.
nobody ever wants to have to go through the loss and then relive it. But knowing that you have your own demons, you live your own life, you've done, but as strong as you are, it's giving you that balance on the same aspect with cannabis. So my thing is has the cannabis taught you about the patience and the identity or the emotional balance for yourself?
My friend Yoda just got here from North Carolina, so he's not going to be on the mic, but he's going to be smoking in the background with me.
Oh, hello.
What up, man?
Absolutely.
Chief up, bro.
They all said, "What's up?"
Is he a proud service member?
Master Yoda is a good friend of mine and grower. Actually,
Okay.
what?
At first I just saw the cannabis. I don't know, Master Yoda. Absolutely no.
Sorry. Elevated. Go ahead and ask me the question one more time. I'm so sorry.
You're okay. Go ahead, Brian.
So my phone keeps closing because I'm a bum.
Oh, here. What has cannabis taught you about patience, identity, or emotional balance?
You said personal identity and emotional balance.
Yeah, and patience.
Okay, so like I said before, when I was first getting into all this, I actually used to want to be in the police department, and I didn't actually do cannabis. Like, I started smoking cannabis when I was 23 years old. I'm 36 now, and I've only been growing for 4 years. So I started when I was 32, I guess. And with that being said, when I was younger, I was a very closed off kind of like child. Lived in a very well taken care of, sheltered environment, really great parents, and when I was younger, I got into motorcycles. So I used to be around a lot of motorcycle clubs, a lot of bikers. And during that, there wasn't much cannabis use. And when I started going to the rave scene after I had got incarcerated that one time for speeding, which I told you guys about earlier, I started doing a lot of psychedelics and, really getting into smoking and everything. And I think personal identity for me is, I think by doing psychedelics and cannabis for me personally has really opened me up and made me more of like a creative person and more somebody that's more in tune. Like for instance, I used to be very materialistic. There was one point where I had like 16 pairs of Oakleys, like I cared about my like total appearance, and now I really could care less. Like I don't give a shit about any of that. I'm more about like I just feel more grounded. So, and then like the emotional balance is, I feel like for cannabis was the first time I felt like I could really breathe deeply. Like being ADHD, having, there's a good chance I'm autistic. I actually have an autism test coming up because my son is heavily autistic and my wife seems pretty normal. So if that is true, that means I'm also autistic. So if you guys have made fun of me in the past, shame on you. I'm just kidding. But I am getting that test because everybody is on the spectrum to some degree, just so you guys know.
Yeah,
Anyways,
absolutely.
with that being said, I think for me, we talked about ADHD medication earlier. I was on Ritalin, Vyvanse, and Concerta. And when I was younger, it was great for calming me down, but it didn't, like you said, it didn't leave much of a person. It left more of a zombie. Even my friends would be like, hey, you're super calm, but you're just like not you. So I kind of rebelled against that. And when I first started smoking, is the first time I was like, this is something that I love. Like I'm not a big drinker, but when I came to smoking and really understanding the high and not getting paranoid and doing it recreationally, and then really starting to hone down on the medical side and why I'm doing it and what it's actually affecting and how it's making my life better, it came more of a sense that it was like, wow, my whole life I've been searching for something, and now I have it. Like I just, for whatever it is, like you guys and everybody else that's in the cannabis community, just something about smoking is just, there's nothing else quite like it, except in my opinion, for like helping other people. Like when we just started, me and Honey, she just got certified through Alliance Therapy Group. So she's a certified therapy dog as well as my service animal. So now we're starting to visit hospice centers and retirement homes and spending time with children and adults. And, a lot of this too, rolls back to the sense about one, the mental health, but two, the sense of, there's just, I guess for me, when you tie it all together, it's like I can go out and think of trying to do all these great things for other people now because I feel great. And I'm mitigating that through, proper behavior, good habits, smoking, and really, trying hard to put my life together. Because if you looked at me 10 years ago, I wasn't like this. I didn't, actually more than 10 years ago, I didn't have a job. I lived off my dad. I didn't do anything. I didn't have any real desires. And then you get passionate about something. And that's what we talked about earlier too, is, where does that come from? And it just comes from being inspired and wanting something to take you away. And it's like, my whole life I was criticized for cannabis. So how could I be the biggest fuck you to everybody that has told me this exact phrase? If you only stop smoking cannabis, you would be so much better at, and I can't wait to make my first $1 million, not selling weed in the space of mental health and proactively, advocating cannabis and say, oh yeah, right. So I would have done a lot better, right? Because now it all worked out. But I was just a moron back then, huh? You know what I mean? It's like, how many successful people smoke pot? How many successful people do heroin? Like you cannot put a substance on a group of people. That is part of a stigma, which is a negative or untrue narrative set by a group of people. That's the definition. I learned that when I was in my mental health retreat summit that I went to. And, it is true because you have people at the highest level that are doing all types of stuff. So, if people are actively putting their life together, again, why? Sorry, I'm going on a rant. You should start talking
No,
again.
I love it because that's tying into the next question. It's how do you keep your light so strong when the world or even the algorithm gets dark? Because some people, like you said, they don't appreciate what you're doing. They were against you. They give you the negative stigma in that aspect. So how do you
Uh,
keep your presence of mind clear to go and keep staying positive in that aspect?
yeah, I have been heavily attacked in the community, I think 3 times now, publicly. And, at first you want to react, but you also have to think about this too. As a brand, and Madman Plant is an LLC, so we are a business. If you're trying to build a following, right, you really need to be careful of what you do. It's almost kind of like being the president or CEO of the company. Everything that you do is magnified, and you can turn off people that you didn't want to turn off by how you react. And you can lose followers by reacting. And I know that it sucks. And believe me, there are times where last year, right after my event, I'll give you an example. I got heavily attacked, and all that good deed went to shit, to a rumor that the total event was horrible and that this entire blow up didn't happen online. It happened at the event, which it happened online, not at the event. And it blows up, and it shows how one good deed can,
Never
no
goes
good deed,
unpunished.
it never goes unpunished. And what you have to do is you have to remember, I'm doing this for me. Fuck them. And I've said it tens of times before I got canceled a couple of times. I've been canceled like twice now, and I lost like over like 500 followers. I got removed from events. I got removed from being a judge, a speaker, from physical applications to internet applications, to one of my sponsors at the time saying I couldn't even mention their name because they didn't want to appear to be on one side or the other, which was bullshit. But it is what it is. The way you keep forward is you remember that what you're doing is for you. And if you try to remember that, you will make it out the best way possible. You will get caught up in the madness. You will be glued to your phone. I just went viral last week or the week before on Facebook. I had like 2,000 followers. Right now, as of today, I have 23,000 followers in less than a month. And I've reached 4.6 million people in 28 days. And I've been posting on Facebook for 4 years. And I finally went viral. You know what I mean? And it's great for the algorithm. But, now that I've had that increased following, now it's my job and duty to create more, to be more for these people who are spending their time. And that's why, when people go out there to set up something, if you half-ass it, if you only do it because you think you're going to get a return, you're going to be sadly mistaken, because a lot of it in the beginning is dancing in the dark. The song by Bruce Springsteen, right? I hate my
Yeah.
clothes, my hair, my face.
It's
I ain't going. Yeah.
yes, I'm in here
And
going in my feels now.
exactly. And a lot of it too this is self-serving. You got in the community to serve the people with whatever it is, whether it's education, whether it's comedy, whether it's entertainment. You're to serve them. Your reward is their thing. If you're only looking at the algorithm, you're going to be disappointed. Like, I've given up on Instagram. I've been on the same numbers on Instagram for almost 2 years now. Facebook keeps moving me up the ladder. So now I'm just moving my attention. I still post on Instagram, but I have a community on Facebook. I have a group page now that has 633 members. When I first went viral, I only had 100 members in the group. By going viral, not that I'm some professor and I know how to go, because it's like catching a wave. And actually, to give you the honest truth, what happened was somebody posted about me in another group, discrediting me because I made a video where I appeared serious and I was talking about how big my plant was, but the plant was only about like this big. And somebody did not know that I was playing around. And he's like, look at this moron. He actually thinks this plant is big. Well, that got shared by 76 people. Then I had shared a bubble hash video of me doing bubble hash, and it went everywhere, all over the trays, all over the table, all over the floor. That's the one that went viral, that got 1.7 million views on it. And I have close to 700 comments of people calling me an idiot. All right. It doesn't matter how you go viral. It just matters that you go viral. So, my thing is, it's how do you weather it? It's the good attention, the bad attention. It all adds to the algorithm. And it boosted me. And I went viral for the first time because people were actually hating on me versus really, I diagnosed it, and there's an even split. There's people who are genuinely curious that had lots of good questions. There's people who really appreciated it and thought it was funny and got that it was a joke. And then there's people that were very upset and thought that I was very serious. And it just showed me that it really, all of it's irrelevant. Just keep doing whatever it is for you, and good things will fucking happen. Like if you start worrying about anybody else, there's a famous picture of Michael Phelps, and there's a 2-man race, and there's a one picture where the competitor is swimming, and you see him look over at Michael Phelps for less than like a millisecond, right? Just to figure out where his competition is. That cost him the race because he looked to find out where his component was versus focusing on himself. He lost the race that day, and it's recorded in, photographs. So, don't waste your time comparing yourself. Like there's so many times where I'll make a video and I'm like, I sound like an idiot. Who gives a fuck? You know what I mean? Nobody here is an expert. If you're an expert, you work for one of these fucking companies that are like MJ BizCon or in the actual cannabis industry. If not, you're a consumer at best and a hobbyist, fanatic at second. You know what I mean? So this idea that, like these people are just so idiots. It's just like we keep going back to it, but it's once again, how do you balance it? You stop worrying about what other people have to say and just realize, because now what happens is, because I went viral, I had people fight my battles for me. There was a guy that went in there and was talking about how I'm gay as shit and I probably suck dick for all my equipment and I'm a faggot with pink hair and that I have nothing valuable to say. And he's like, do you understand that this guy posted one video and in 24 hours they got 10,000 views and you have like 200 followers on your account? And then the other guy was like, yeah, dude, this guy's living his dream and you're fucking hating on him because you have a fucking miserable life. And then another guy was like, yeah, you're miserable and pathetic. You know what I mean? And I didn't say shit. You know what I mean? Because your community is going to get who you are. And if you react, well, they know that you can fight your own battles.
Take care of your people.
You're just one of them. It's really just holding out and just shutting your mouth when you really don't want to. And I've done it and it doesn't feel like it is working, but everybody forgets eventually.
That's I'm taking notes. Then that's the reason why. It's one of those things that I can
watch this again.
I'll definitely will, but that now I have a short hand so I can move forward with it. That's a great hand. So if you can tell the world one truth about cannabis, what would your one truth be?
That it's not what everybody makes it. Like when I had my tent grows in my 4x4, I had 2 fans and a light, and that was it. I didn't have a humidifier. I didn't have all these fancy meters, and I grew really great weed. You don't need all this fancy equipment. If you're on a budget, it's the best time to start growing. Your biggest investment will probably be your light and your tent and maybe a fan or 2. But how you source out your material, I mean, you can get a tent for $50 on Amazon. Nobody says you need to get a 10x10 for the first round. You know what I mean? And another thing too is this idea that I need really big pots to grow really big plants. I grow in 3-gallon pots when I do my cocoa and soils and stuff like that. Now, when I did living soil, I did 5 to 7 gallons, but I'm also vegging out longer. I'm looking for a bushier plant. But if you're someone that looks for perpetual grow, you can produce serious weight in 9 to 12 week ratios, going back to back with clones and have perpetual cycles and always have weight. And it's a great way so you can come up with new flavors. You could keep old clones around. You could stockpile and archive. Hey, I want to wash this amount. I want to smoke on this. I'm going to press that. It just gives you so much options. So if all you're doing in the beginning is just smoking flower, well, now I got dabs on hand. Now I could bubble wash. Now I could do this. Now I can save my trim. There's just so many ways that you can segue with that. And it doesn't revolve around the latest equipment, the most money. A lot of people look at me, and my biggest question that I get from people is, how much did everything that I do in my room cost? A lot of my stuff, because I've had the opportunity to work with a lot of different brands, has been given to me through sponsorship, right? And it's not just getting free gear, it's creating value for the company. Yep. And then also value for yourself. You know what I mean? So a lot of what I do is working with companies to help promote these items, whether it's front-facing marketing or backwards-facing marketing, and really build relationships. So a lot of times, not everything, like with my lights and my setup, I have really great sponsors who believe in what we do, who are able to help support that. But that's the whole benefit about taking this seriously, making a name for yourself, being looked at as somebody that's doing something in the industry, not just like this good luck Charlie or this one-time hero, but who's consistent, who's proactive. Most people, a lot of times when I talk to sponsors and people that want to work with me, one of the things that they're so impressed with is the level of content and stuff that I'm pushing out, knowing that it's just me and my wife that are MadManPlant. I don't have a team. It's just me, responding to all those comments. And that's why when they get mad that I don't respond right away, it's like, remember, MadManPlant's not my only business. I own several other companies outside MadManPlant plus MadManPlant, and I do all this on my own. And it's not about what can be provided to you. It's about what you can provide with yourself and then what's given to you. And that's like a misconception. So the biggest thing is, in any room or any brand or, deal that you work out, is how are you best promoting value? And you're going to have, and anybody that's listening will have to come up with that on their own, because everybody's value will be different based on your specialty, your background, what you're good at. Mine, because I own a production company, just happens to be video production and marketing. That's how I have the cameras and the lighting and all of this stuff. That's what I do for a living, for big companies. So when I work with other companies, I'm really just ecosysteming my other assets that, I've been doing since 2013. I've been in Grow for 4 years. I've been a video production company for, close to over 10 years. So, it's a huge difference.
Absolutely.
That's amazing. So, do you want to jump in, or you want me to?
You can keep going.
So, the legacy that you have in the future of growing, you evolved as a role as an educator, a leader, and a cultivator of our culture. You're judging competitions, you're teaching classes, and you're building platforms like Smokebusters Media. What is the next chapter for you?
Well, really what I'm trying to do now is, get on national stages, soon international stages. Right now, I'm in the starting stages of working with the university to really help make this all like legit. So a lot of it's continued education, getting people on the courses, getting people involved with the advanced learning of cultivation. We're going to have a course that people can sign up that'll be specifically from growing, from clone to harvest, seed to harvest, really just trying to drive in as much value and resource and education to the website, which is, where I want everybody to go to, because with social media, it can be hit or miss. But if you sign up with a free membership, there are free downloads, and there will also be paid assets on the website, depending on it. So there's always something available. Even if you don't have a budget, you can still download free available information on MadManPlant and really building that archive, building the growers circle as far as the group goes, and really kind of diving in this community that kind of wants to grow, learn, and play, and really be taken seriously. Because I think a lot of times when you mention the word cannabis, you're instantly, put in a stigma of, oh, so you're one of those people. And those people, when you go to like MJ BizCon or these big events and travel throughout, the United States or where it be the world, you see that cannabis is old, young, black, white, rich, poor. Cannabis, I mean, is for everybody. Now, is it for everybody? No, but neither is alcohol, and we see that all the time.
That's so true. So
Absolutely.
that correlates to the next thing that I was going to ask genuinely. Alcohol is one of those things that people die regularly. With that, with what we want for the community, with what we want for cannabis, where do you see the community heading, and what are the things that you could think of we still need to work on as gromies to fix the things that may be inadvertent or unapparent?
Well, I think the biggest thing is fixing the stigma, and that's going to be through education. That's going to be people taking the necessary steps and, lobbying, writing letters, really starting to speak constructively, not, free the weed or, we want our goddamn weed. It's really, taking the time, patience, and knowing that um, making a movement like this and changing a narrative that's been ingrained for years takes time. Like this isn't a sprint, it's a marathon. But right now it's also how many people can we get on board, and how many people this year could be introduced to cannabis and find value in it, and how many people does that add each year to the growing number of support and people who truly want this plant for a purpose other than what society thinks, which is just to get another form of getting high. And I think another thing too is, we have to realize that um, cannabis is very diverse. There's a million ways to grow it, and most people are not professional growers, and most people, are just your average involved grower to begin with. So this whole thing of expecting this high endness and like people have shit weed because it doesn't look like this or like that. That's not necessarily true, because if you just look at weed because it looks good, you might be disappointed, because as a judge, there has been cannabis, like when we did the American Autoflower Cup, that I was like, oh man, this is gonna be really great. And then it didn't turn out to be that great. So, you're really looking at, like terpenes and, the aromas and a lot of different characteristics of the plant and, the cannabinoid systems and other things versus just the way it looks. And there also are some plants that are designed that aren't going to look as frosty. Maybe they're a little bit leafier, but they carry heavier notes of this, or they're designed more for stress relief or relaxation. So, a lot of times, I just see these comments and I'm like, it's so unnecessary, because it limits the people's ability to want to post. And we should make people feel like they should be out there expressing as much as possible, getting as much positive feedback so they can really want to be better. Because I mean, nobody's like, oh yeah, I read 100 comments that said I suck, and now I really want to go spend a couple hours learning more about this plant because I get so much positive feedback from it. You know what I mean? So
Yeah. So
It's
we got one
literally
more question for you,
yeah,
and
look,
it
your
is,
first 2 hour session,
what
I love it,
legacy?
right on time.
Love it. Yeah. So, what legacy do you want to leave behind, not just as a grower, but as a man?
Well, my biggest thing is I've always wanted to do something that's bigger than myself. Something that one day involves a lot of people, really big opportunities, sponsorships, movements, and that's going to be through Infinity and MadManPlant and Smokebusters. And as far as legacy, that comes with what you do. The biggest thing I think I'm more, want to be, focused on is truly making an impact where I can reach those stages and I can reach those types of people and really, build it in reality as big as I think it is in my mind, and that would be the legacy is like it all coming true, it all being real one day, and I always talk about Josh Kesselman because he's somebody that I look up to in the business space as kind of a role model as somebody like a CEO. And, and if you look at him, from being homeless, living in his friend's garage, obsessed with rolling papers to now, being able to buy High Times magazine and doing all these crazy things, it wasn't because, he didn't dream big, and it wasn't because he didn't have passion or heart. It's because he believed in himself and he was relentless and he kept pushing, and sooner or later it worked out. And that kind of heart and drive is, I think the legacy is just knowing that whoever you are, legacy is one of those things where you should honestly think about a lot, because there's two types of death. There's the death when your heart stops beating, and then there's the death when somebody says your name for the very last time. And just like in the movie The Sandlot, heroes are remembered, but legends never die. And if you
Absolutely.
could be a legend, and in people's minds forever, I think, that is the legacy, is to find some way to connect with, people on such a deep level that resonated, and that's why we're so special as humans, because we all have that ability. Our relationships with each person is going to be different than anybody else. And those moments that we have, whether they're our friends, our spouses, people just we meet in passing, in those moments, in those seconds, we all have the ability to leave some type of impact. You know what I mean? And that's what's remembered. You know what I mean? So I think that's what it is. I just want to build something so big, so real, that it's just like, I don't even know. I want to be one of those people that are like, yeah, if you had told me this like 6 years ago, I would have said you're full of shit. I want to be one of those people. You know what I mean? You know,
Yeah, I love it.
So freaking rad. Literally so rad.
So, brother, with that, I just want to let you know what you're doing isn't just teaching, man. It's transforming from genetics to gratitude, from soil to soul. This is what growing elevated really means. Madman, thank you for being a voice of reason, rhythm, and rebellion in this green movement. To everyone tuned in, remember the best gardens grow from love. Stay elevated, stay grounded, and keep growing.
yeah, and I want to thank you guys for having me on as your first guest on your podcast. And your first podcast is 1 hour and 57 minutes exactly. So you guys should be pretty proud of yourselves that you guys did so well. And you guys are a great team. I like the synergy. I like the questions. You got to start somewhere. And like I tell people all the time, the biggest thing is making the first video or making the first post, and that's what you guys are doing today. So in a way, you guys are creating your own legacy. And I should ask you the same question. What are you guys hoping to get out of, being who is, and, Elevated Healing Farms and Best Buddies 420?
Do you want to go first? You want me to, bro?
Yeah, each person gets a turn.
I'll let you go.
You know what? To be honest with you,
I'll let you go first.
I finally found my calling. I found what resonates with me, and the grounding and the instantaneously feeling of connection to not just the world, but actually the world around me. To now to be able to broadcast my genuine self in an open forum and share that with somebody is the biggest picture I can project. Because if I portray it in the right light, I don't have to ask for followers. I don't have to beat down the block to get somebody to listen to what I'm here to say. They're going to actually believe in my mission because it's genuine, it's pure, and it's right exactly what it's for. Money always follows things when there's a great cause supporting it. That's just what that happens. If you're in it for the money, you're in it for the wrong reason. If
Yep.
you're in it for the people, the money will always follow, just because there's always things that come along with that type of venue, type of avenue. Put people first. And when people are put first, maybe amazing things can grow from that. And it's just like our roots for the community. If they're strong, the canopy's beautiful and bright.
I love that,
I
dude.
love it. Yeah. Honestly, I don't want a legacy to be about fame or numbers, man. I just want it to be about people, about their stories, that might have gone unheard, growers, I don't know, that have gave their heart to the plant, and the connections that we've built through honesty and healing, man. Um,
Hmm.
I mean, if our legacy can remind us just one person that they're not alone, that their journey matters, and maybe even that the growth in all forms is worth celebrating, then we've done something right. Like that's all you can do.
My brother.
You guys are
Absolutely.
awesome. You guys are going to make a great podcast. And like I said, I'll have you guys on my podcast. So we'll get you guys scheduled and I can interview you guys and we'll flip the script here.
I love
But
it.
you guys did
I look
great.
forward to it.
I love it. Thank you very much, man. And truly, like it's a blessing. You're a blessing to the community. You do great things, and
Well,
I look
thank you.
forward to seeing what you do, man. So,
Well, who knows? We'll have to cross paths soon. And maybe you guys have to come down sometime and be here in the podcast studio. We've had, I think, like 6 or 7 people now out of town coming. Oh, fuck. Yeah, what doesn't last forever. I'm a fraud. But yeah, no, I think it's really great. I'm gonna get us out of here and get you guys back to your day. Thank you guys once again for having me on the show and allowing me to do this. It was really awesome. It's been a minute since I've been able to talk about some of the stuff. So, and for everybody watching, thank you guys so much. I do want to let you know that we have more podcasts coming up. The Grow series is about to start. We are waiting for a couple of extra items from Current Culture. I can't start without my UC roots because there would be nothing to clean the tank, and you don't want to do that. My clones, however, the Perp Burst, the Super Boof, and the Super Berry are doing fantastic, and I can't wait to get those in. And we have the room completely cleaned out. It wasn't nearly as hard as I thought it was going to be. It was actually a little bit cleaner. The parts, when you take them apart, aren't that many. I was kind of dreading it, but luckily Yoda over here helped me clean it up, and we did a good job. And this run's going to be really good. I think it's the Super Boof is the one that we're going to be keeping specifically for washing. I know some people love my wash, some people hate the wash, depending on the color or the process. But I can tell you, we are getting better. But Yoda over here, he is the guru at washing and is teaching me everything I need to know. His stuff comes out truly amazing. And
that's super kind of you. Thank you very much.
why does everybody do that? You got to turn it that way.
Sorry. That's super kind of you. Thank you very much. It looks like it goes the other way.
Yeah. And then also online, if you guys want, we have merch available finally. And then also, I just put out more content. A lot of people have been downloading my ebook, and I thank you guys for doing that. I think we have close to 100 people who have downloaded the book. So I'm also had a request to make an audio book out of it. So I'm going to be doing that. So if you want to listen to it, it'll be on Spotify, Facebook, YouTube, all of that. And let's see here. What else? Yeah, no, I think that's it. I'll be in California. Vegas is up in the air based on my schedule. So I may or may not be able to make it, which I would really hate to make this Vegas, but my production company always comes first. But yeah, I think that's it, guys. So have a beautiful weekend. My guest, you will stay on and I will let everybody else out. So give me 1 second here. Have a great day. And remember, visit MadManPlant.com.